what's a Bible? It's just all these people who have gone through all these things already.
Yeah, right, right. Nothing's new under the sun, you know? Yeah,
It's new under the sun. And they've
yeah,
all gone through it. And it's okay to grieve. Look at Lamentations. Like, how
yeah,
long, oh Lord? And when is this going to end? Or what is going to
yeah,
happen? And
yeah,
if he doesn't answer in the here and now,
yes.
he still has a big picture of how it's got to work, whether we understand it or not. And that's where your
Right.
trust comes in.
Hello and welcome to Eternal Echoes, where we ask older Christians to share wisdom and lessons learned on their walk of faith, remember and proclaim God's goodness and faithfulness, and seek to uncover eternal truths that can help guide future generations. My name is Katharine Rose, and I'm your host. Thank you for joining me. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eternal Echoes podcast. So, today I'm so excited. We have the pleasure of hearing from Jan Johnson. Now, I was connected to Jan through the Christian Podcasters Association Facebook page, which is a great page. If you are a podcaster and looking to make connections, I highly recommend it. That's how Jan and I got connected, and I'm super excited and grateful she's here. I want to just introduce her briefly and then ask her to introduce herself. So, above all, Jan is overwhelmed with the joy of being a child of God. Through many adversities, miscarriage, widowed, estranged children, abandonment, rape, and cancer, she has discovered that God is indeed faithful, loving, and kind. She lives with her husband Ed on a sheep farm in Brownsmead, Oregon, where they raise their 10 kids, yours, mine, ours, and theirs. Jan loves building relationships both in person and through her podcast and characters in her novels. And so, Jan, I'm so grateful you are here, and I want to officially welcome you to the podcast.
Well, thank you, because it's a delight to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us, I know I just gave you a little intro, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I lived for through college. Went to college through there. I got my degree in early childhood education, and then I've lived in Brownsmead, Oregon, for about 50 years.
Wow.
That
Wow.
makes me sound old, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm a mere 72.
Oh, yes. Just a young one.
Anyway, let's see. So when I married my first husband had a brain tumor and
Mm,
died at the age of 38. So I was
wow.
32 as a widow. We
Wow.
had 3 kids together. So then about 5 years later, my friend says, "Do I have the man for you?" And I'm going, yeah, okay, whatever. Anyway, ended up marrying him. He had 2 natural and 2 adopted kids, so that
Okay.
was 7.
Wow.
And then he says, "How about we have a baby together?" And I'm going, "Oh my gosh," because both of our youngest were 7.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm thinking I'm kind of done with
Yeah, right. No more.
thinking this is probably enough, right?
Yes.
So I got pregnant, had Jed, and then I'm thinking I don't want just one tag along. So I got
Yeah.
pregnant again and had
Oh,
Emily.
oh my gosh.
And
That's
then God had other plans, and our natural family planning baby was Sydney.
oh my, that's so fun. Yeah, I mean 10 kids. I know, combined, but then to have I mean that's a lot of
I
kids.
mean,
That's a
I
lot.
still gave birth to 6 of them, so
Yeah, right, right. That's amazing. That's amazing. So do you have grandchildren? But
it's kind of like being single.
okay.
All of those kids, right? I only have 3 grandkids. One of them is with my adopted daughter who is estranged and we
Okay.
don't really know.
Okay.
Her son is, I think, maybe 22 or 23, something like that. I've
Okay.
seen him twice. So,
Okay.
and then
So
And then,
sore point. Sorry.
yeah, I know. It's just kind of course, you must have lots of, you know.
I know.
Half
Oops,
of them
sorry.
didn't even get married, so they're just like dinking around. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
have, um, my daughter had a daughter, which I was very close to, but I'll tell you that story in a little bit when we get into
Okay.
that one
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our son, Aaron, and his wife, just at 42, had their first baby.
Oh, wow. That's
He's in the
amazing.
Coast Guard, and so they were like helicopter parents, just loved their,
Yeah.
yeah. But they're in Miami, across the country, but we FaceTime almost every day together. So that
Oh,
one is really fun. Yeah.
oh, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
So we had
Oh,
that.
good.
So
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good.
so we
So,
just gotta be pleased with who we have.
yeah, that's right. Appreciate what we have.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey with the Lord. How long have you been walking with God, and what has your journey looked like?
Well, my mom was very faith-filled. My dad played the game.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think we ended up going to a Lutheran church because his family was German and that was just part of their heritage, you know,
Sure.
whatever. So I grew up in there. My parents divorced when I was 13 and she she just faithfully took us to church all the time. I mean, we did that. So then
Yeah.
after I graduated, well, even in college, I kind of drifted away a little bit, didn't do a lot.
Sure.
Um, but after college, a colleague of mine invited me to a Catholic charismatic prayer meeting. And I went, oh, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was really the first time I ever heard the gospel.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You can go to church, you grow up going to church and you didn't, I can relate to that. It's like, wait, think I missed something.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, why are we missing that, you know?
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
any rate, and it was the first time I just like, "Oh, like, there's a responsibility on my part."
Yes. Right.
Not I mean, I always believed in, you know, God is up
Yep.
there somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus died and he was gone. I mean, he kinda left.
Right.
And who knows
Right.
about that Holy Ghost thing? I don't know,
Yeah. What is that? What's that about? Right? Yeah.
right? You know?
Yeah.
And so I just didn't even really I mean, it was like it really moved me, you know, at that
Wow.
point into, oh, there is something bigger. It wasn't anything that I ended up delving into deeper at that point, but it was
Sure.
the start of where God really transformed me, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then years later, when I married Howard, we landed in a church that was just growing and teaching really. I'd never been in that kind of a church that was just really teaching and
Yeah.
all of that, and it was super spirit-filled and well, it just
Wow.
it grew us all, you know, and then
Yeah.
that's where my
Yeah.
solid foundation came from, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And so, I'm curious what throughout your journey, what you have come to learn about God that you didn't realize when you were younger.
Really, I have learned to trust him, which is just a hard thing to do, but you only learn that through going through hard things to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And
You
I
know,
mean,
because
yeah.
if
And
you
it,
don't go through hard things, you aren't in a place to trust him. You don't need to trust him. Everything's hunky dory.
yeah.
You're just living your
Yeah.
life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Absolutely. I mean, and it sounds like you have gone through quite a lot of things, quite a lot of loss. So can you talk about that and how the Lord brought you through
yeah,
all of your loss and the grieving process?
yeah, yeah. There's a lot. I just finished writing a Bible study. First one that I've written. Usually I've written is faith-based romances and fun stuff, but and a memoir that tells a lot of those things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happened. But it's based on the idea of it is writing. It's called Discovering Your Journey. So basically, you start out with a map of your life,
Hmm.
and to the events in your life or the things that happened or detours or whatever that brought you to who you are today.
Sure.
And so as I'm examining all of these things, and going through this, after you do your journey, then we compare it to Ruth, Jonah, Joseph, and David. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the format is because of this happened, resulting in. And so
Oh,
then we
okay.
take that same format in with those characters in their
Oh,
life
wow.
and then compare them to the things that they experienced into our lives.
Okay.
So as all that to say is just there's a lot of grief in all of those stories, I think
Yes.
that happen, or seeing how God orchestrates things all together in this big plan of his,
Yes.
So when I even if my with my romances, the first one is got just a little gal who's trying to figure out her life, and everybody else is getting married and she's not, she can't find her
Uh-huh.
person, and
Uh-huh.
and
Oh, sounds
the
familiar.
grief of lost plans, of what you hoped
Yeah.
to have, but didn't, at
Yeah.
her point. I mean, eventually she ends up with this guy, but
Yeah.
it's like you still go through all of that kind of like, what is wrong with me, or where is,
Right.
that kind
Right.
of thing. And then the second one, Tina, main character, her brother dies from Batten disease, and then her mom gets cancer and she dies, and her
Mhm.
dad focuses on a foundation for Batten disease, and she's kind of lost in the, trying to figure out
Yeah.
both all of that grief from there, but who am I and where am I in the the past?
Right.
Where's my
Right.
dad, and where's, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So resolving that kind of a thing. And then the
Yeah.
last one was, this was a series. The last
Yeah.
one is, Olivia is born without a hand, and so she has this limb disfigurement, and is adopted. So
Okay.
trying to search for her bio mom, and then eventually finds out that she was an abortion survivor. And
Wow.
then so that's a whammy, like kind of what,
Right. Right.
what is this, and how do I figure that and find my place in that. That's actually
Yeah.
based on a gal that lives here locally, that was
Wow.
her story, and not without
Wow.
the hand. She had a different disfigurement, but it was based on her being an
Yeah.
abortion survivor. So anyway, it was
Oh,
just all of those kind of things that
sure.
started in there, so then in my Bible study, the one that I focus the most on with grief is David, because
Mm.
he's got just layer upon layer of things that he grieves,
Yes.
and all different layers of types of them, so
Yes.
um one of the things where in my Bible study I do videos of myself and some of my
Sure.
stories and things. So
Sure.
um so when David is wrongly accused by Saul, who
Mhm.
tries to kill him,
Mhm.
he's trying to kill me, but
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
but my granddaughter was 9 and came down to her mom. This is a little girl that they live 6 hours from me, so I'm not there
Okay.
every day or all the time, whatever. But
Sure.
she came down in the morning and told her mom, she says, I don't know what happened last night, and I don't think
Yeah.
I think you were sleepwalking or something, but you came into my room and I got really scared because you were yelling at me and
Oh,
um just doing things that made me scared. I was not comfortable, but I want you, and she's wrapping her arms around it. She's not afraid
sure.
of her. She's not anything,
Yeah.
but it was just, I want you to know what happened. I think you need to get some help. And you're just like, I don't
Oh,
know. Right.
oh my
So
goodness.
that turned into later that day, she went into counseling. She'd been in counseling for a while
Mhm.
and told her counselor, and so that ended up with the HS and children's
Yeah.
services and going through
Oh,
a whole thing where they found nothing had happened. But meanwhile, the dad,
yeah.
who divorced, takes her, and then it's during COVID, and so
Oh
COVID had
gosh.
just started, and so he takes her and basically kidnaps her.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so here, isolated her from all of his family, all of our family,
Yeah.
everybody, she
Oh,
wasn't in school. He cut her off from her friends, couldn't call them, did
oh.
anybody. I mean, literally kidnapped her.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I can't even tell you, it's the hardest thing I've ever gone through my whole life,
Oh, I
because
mean,
she
that
would
is,
call every day and we'd, FaceTime all the time and do all this stuff.
yeah,
And just all of a sudden it's like, but there was no, it was hard for my daughter to get an attorney. She'd get somebody,
sure.
they didn't want to take it because it was an unusual case. And
Yeah,
then the evil stepmom, literally, just, I can't even
yeah,
describe this person
yeah, yeah.
adequately, but I finally called about 4 months later and I said, "I want to talk to my granddaughter." "Oh, well,
Mhm.
you can't do that because she has this meltdown every time there's anything brought up about her mom or related to her mom." I'm thinking, well, of course, because she's,
Yeah,
you've cut her off and she's feeling abandoned.
right,
So
right.
why would, and not
Oh my goodness.
understanding any of this.
Yes.
And so she says, well, um, and I'm just thinking, well, why is this? And then she starts, I finally got a notebook and wrote down everything she was saying, but it's
Yeah.
like, she's saying, well, you must feel so terrible to have a daughter who has viciously raped and abused your granddaughter since she was 3 years old. And I'm thinking, what
Oh,
is this
yeah.
story that's happening here? Because
Right.
it's not true. None of it was true. And I'm thinking,
Yes.
how do you combat that? How do I help my daughter who's grieving and confused and at
Yes.
loss and everything? And I
Right.
can't get hold of. So I was writing her letters every week. I knew she wasn't getting them because she would have responded.
Yeah.
I put my phone
Yeah.
number in there again and she would have. She's
Yeah.
super bright. She would have been, but she wasn't,
Yeah. But she
putting
didn't.
anything.
Yeah.
So it
Oh
was
my
like
goodness.
it took 5 years to finally get to court. And
Wow.
meanwhile, you know, still isolated. And at
Yeah.
one point, then they went and dropped her off. She's 15 now. So she was 13. They dropped her off at his mom's house,
Okay.
just saying that, well, she can't live with us anymore because she's a danger to animals and other kids. She's abusing the younger brother and she
Oh.
raped the dog.
Oh my goodness.
I
Oh
mean,
my goodness.
it's just like
Yeah.
crazy, crazy,
Absurd.
you
Yeah.
know, and the dad's super narcissistic. Anyway, it was just
Yeah.
like a lot of grief,
Yeah.
a lot of grief.
Well, yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's traumatic. I mean, it's traumatic. It's all of that for everyone involved. It's
Yeah.
traumatic. And so, I mean, as you were going through that, how did that impact your relationship with God? Like, how did God bring you through that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the song Waymaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Even though you don't see he's working, you just got to trust that he's working in behind the
Yeah.
scenes and everything. And so even part of that, Sarah finally was able to get a parent evaluator who spent a lot of time interviewing us, interviewing stepmom, the dad, all this kind of stuff, whatever,
Yeah.
and had a big case. And even when it went to, I mean, and that was finally like, oh, finally vindication. There's going to be
Yes.
something that's said. Even at the end of all of the court dates and everything that happened, the other grandma got custody of her. She doesn't. She's so brainwashed
Yeah.
now that she still doesn't want to see us. She could,
Yeah.
but she's so
Yes.
brainwashed that she doesn't want to see us, and it's just like,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know, where she
Oh,
is. So I still have to just keep trusting in that. I mean, I have to believe God is who He is, and He's got a bigger plan than what I can see. You know,
yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's like, why did you take my daughter's only child? Why didn't you
Right.
want her to parent her? At this
Yes.
point. But in my heart of hearts, I
Yeah.
really think that God's writing her testimony.
Yeah. Yes. Amen.
And
Yeah.
at some point, she's going to be able to come back and use that.
Yes. Because that's but exactly. I mean, and that's what God does, right? He takes the most horrific things and turns them somehow into good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Of all the
Um,
griefs I've had, that's been because it's ongoing. It's like
yes.
if you have a kid that's kidnapped, it, there's no closure in it, but when you know
Well,
who, who,
yeah.
who caused all the damage and everything,
Right.
it's just a whole nother thing.
Right. And I would imagine you felt a little bit helpless
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to like, okay, how can I fix this? What can I do? Where can I do it?
Right.
Get in this. And
Right.
there was just, and so much time in between because of COVID. You couldn't
Yes.
manipulate, if we could have gotten to the courts immediately,
Yeah.
probably we could have resolved
Yeah.
things, and whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
So here it is, 5 years
Oh.
later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that is, I mean, I can see that is, it is just, it is traumatic. That is traumatic. Um,
And it's the
so
thing, and the real grief in there is just the hopes that you had in the relationship, that you can't,
yes.
you know,
Yes.
it's that
Yeah.
loss of what you think
Uh-huh.
should have happened,
Right.
you know.
Like the expectate you had these expectation or the hopes, right? And then that gets snatched
Yeah.
from you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so what would you, I mean, having gone having gone through that and going through that, I mean, what sort of words of encouragement or wisdom would you have for people who are struggling with grief of any kind, whether it is the loss of a dream, the loss of a relationship, the loss, of a person? Like what kind of words of encouragement, having gone through that yourself, would you give?
Start with the Psalms.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
even look at David when he takes Bathsheba and they have a son and the son's going to die, and first there's that anticipatory grief that it's going to happen. It was the same with my
Yeah.
husband Howard with his brain tumor. I knew
Yeah.
eventually he was going to die, and whatever. So
Yeah.
you were grieving ahead of time
Yeah.
with that type of thing.
Right.
But and then even things like the abbreviated grief of with a terminal illness or something too, it's
Sure.
just going to be this period
Yes.
of time, but meanwhile that kind of when and how and
Yes.
what, and what's it going to look like, and going through it. It's
Yeah.
just that God takes you through deep waters. He's right there, and you
Yeah.
have to just you have to keep in the word, because if you don't, you just get lost.
Right.
Sucks
Right.
you
Yes.
down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, then that was going to be one of my questions too, is like, practically speaking, how do you trust God in those moments? In going through that, and for you for 5 years, I mean, how do you practically do that? But what I hear you're saying is you have to be in the word to start, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what's a Bible? It's just all these people who have gone through all these things already.
Yeah. Right. Right. Nothing's new under the sun, Yeah.
It's new under the sun, and they've
Yeah.
all gone through it, and you can see, and it's okay to grieve. Look at Lamentations,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like, how
Yeah.
long, O Lord, and
Uh-huh.
when is this going to end, or what is going to
Yeah.
happen? But that was, and
Yeah.
if he doesn't answer in the here and now,
Yes.
he still has a big picture of how it's got to work, whether we understand it or not. And that's where your
Right.
trust comes in.
And that's where yes, that's the hardest part, right? It's like we want it to make sense, and then it's like, well, I can trust it if it makes sense, but it's when it doesn't make sense, that's when you need to trust, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you don't, what have you got? I mean, what's your
yeah.
alternative?
Right. 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 And I
Yeah.
mean, and that's an interesting question too, is how would you go through something like that without faith and trust in God? What
Well, my sister is a confirmed atheist.
okay.
And in this past year, I mean, I've been watching her go through this stuff. So in the past year, um, her daughter died from a fentanyl overdose.
Mm,
Her um About 2 weeks after that, someone came to her house dressed up like a power company. I
mm.
need to go in the back and check out your power and all this kind of stuff. Ends up pulling a gun on her. And so one time when her husband is gone,
Oh my gosh.
and pulls a gun on her, hits her in the head with the gun. He asked for a glass of water and she got it, and he's
Yeah.
got the gun. So she threw the water at him and then, gave a little bit, but he ends up hitting her on the head with the gun, knocking her down. She's like, "What do you want?" Goes get some, um, jewelry or things like that. He locks her in the bathroom. She can't get out. She's
Oh,
finally, anyway, so all out
mm,
of salt and thing.
oh my gosh.
Then, 2 months later, her husband's diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And so they go through all this horrible chemo and whatever. He actually
Yeah.
just died about a month ago.
Oh, I'm
And it
sorry.
was, and then her dog dies that she's had for 18
Oh my
years. And then
gosh.
she gets a new dog, and somebody else's dog assaulted, and she has to take, I mean, it's just like
Talk about
all of
you
these things are just bing, 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 and I'm thinking, is this God trying to say, hey, look at me or find me?
trying to get her attention, right? Right?
You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
I mean, it's given me an opportunity to just love on her, all the way
Yeah.
through it or be there for her and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's been rough. Oh, I didn't mention that then she gets breast cancer and has a double mastectomy.
Oh my gosh. You talk about when it rains, it pours, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
But and
like,
I look at it, Anne, how are you doing this
well, that, and
without
yeah. Yeah.
God? How
Yes.
are you doing that? How are you getting
Right.
through that?
Right. Without hope, how do you,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is, yeah. Wow.
Somehow.
Wow.
I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, what, yeah, that's, oh my gosh. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot.
yeah, for
Yeah.
anybody.
Right. Right. Let
But
alone, yes,
when you don't
exactly.
even have any hope at
Yes.
all, and you can't
Yeah.
reach out to the scriptures, or you can't,
Yes.
see any
Yes.
sense to it at all, or have any comfort, or
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, and you had mentioned for yourself being in the word helps ground you and helped ground you during that grief and during, were there other things that helped ground you during that time?
I think journaling.
Journaling. Yeah.
I think journaling is really good to go through, and just even if you're writing out your prayers,
Yes.
to
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
just this is where I'm at and how come and what is going on here, and just
Yeah.
you know yeah.
Yeah.
And friends, I mean, you gotta have relationships. You
Yes.
gotta have people there
Yes.
with you, and
Yep.
you need to let them in, you know? I
Uh-huh.
think that's when Howard died, it was somebody, I think they went in, I think it was even before. He ended up paralyzed. He had surgery and it ended up paralyzing him. Couldn't find
Okay.
the tumor, but anyway.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So, and somebody offered to bring a meal or something, and I'm just saying, "Oh, we're good,"
Yeah.
except that then they said, "You're robbing us of a blessing if you
Mm.
don't allow us to share
Wow.
in your grief."
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's
Yeah.
always stuck with me.
That's
I
really
always say,
good.
"Let people in,"
Yes.
let
Which takes, yeah. Yeah. It takes
yeah,
a humility, right? And
it does.
vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you don't wanna be like you don't wanna feel pitied,
Right.
you know,
Right.
because 'cause you're strong and
Yeah. I
independent,
got this, right? Yes. I got it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you don't
Yep.
want that, but it's just like once you do and you realize that that's something you're giving to someone else, their giving is you giving.
Yes. Yes. Allowing them to be a blessing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
because it's
that's
just
good.
a small thing that they can do to help themselves grieve.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah, the importance of community. We are made, right, for
absolutely,
community. Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and
So,
having strong people that are in your life that are, faith-filled, because they're gonna speak scripture and truth to you,
yes,
or
yes.
just sitting with
Which,
you and
right, which
listening.
you need, right? During those times where it's almost you need someone else to be speaking the truth when maybe you're just not. It's like I can't even feel that right now, you know?
Well, and I remember it, like, in the middle of with Ellie's stuff, going to church, and I was just so broken. I was just so I mean, worship's the worst time because 'cause you're just
Oh, yeah, I know.
you know?
I know. I've
And I'm
been, yep.
walking out and somebody says, "How are you doing?" I says, "I just need to be with, like, well, just hold my arms up for me."
Yeah.
You
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Hold them up, cause I
Yeah.
can't do it. I just can't do it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so, I mean, yeah, you make such a good point though. We cannot do it on our own, and we aren't meant to do it on our own. Yeah. And that example of Moses is so, it's like he had to, come and lift his arms up when he couldn't. He's like,
Yeah,
I can't. Yeah.
because the battle was too big, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
On the flip side, I look back just even with my husband. I've been in, I found his journal after,
Mm.
you don't read your husband's journal when they're alive.
Right. Right.
But the things God was teaching him, it was his spiritual journal, the things God was teaching him was just, I mean, unbelievable, with this whole taste of what heaven was like and the whole
Wow.
thing. And so it's just like, I felt like God wanted me to write a book about it. It's like, what do? You don't just write a journal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. 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 Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
I did it as a memoir, whatever.
Wow.
So it, reads like a novel, kind of whatever. But
Yeah.
to include his saying, "Oh, this is," while I'm on that, this is like just a whole God thing.
Sure.
So just the fact that writing that his story out and sharing that, which has blessed a ton of people that I wouldn't have expected to. But here's what
Yeah.
happened. So my son, Kyle, who was the youngest of our first marriage, right? Of
Hmm.
Howard's and mine. He was 3 when his dad died, so he didn't really know him other
Okay.
than stories or things.
Sure.
So Kyle does voiceover and a bunch of different acting things. But I said, I want you to come up and let's do the audiobook for it. I'll read my part, you read your dad's.
Yeah.
So, and Kyle was like, probably hadn't, he's in his 40s. He probably hasn't, uh, been to church
Yeah.
5 times since then. So he comes up and he starts reading, and when he does a character or something, he becomes that character,
Uh-huh.
trying to become his dad.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
as he's reading some of the parts of
Yeah.
the things that God was doing, like he had a moment where he just like absolutely just stopped and couldn't.
Wow.
And it's like after we got done, I mean, it was really powerful. And so after we got done, it was been, I don't know, a month or so later. I'm out in the garden where God ends up talking to me a lot. I don't know, but and he says, you realize that Howard got to evangelize his son 40
Wow.
years later.
Wow. Oh, isn't that so beautiful? That is so beautiful.
Isn't that like,
Oh my gosh. Only God, right? Yes.
so
Oh,
when something like that happens,
yeah.
it's like, okay, he did it here.
Here.
Same
And then,
God, gonna do it again here, gonna do
yes.
it again there. I may not see it all. Who knows? I don't know. But I
Yeah.
really feel like all the things that he's taken me through are things that I've been able to use to minister to other people.
Right. And isn't that what he does though? He takes our pain and he comforts us through our pain, and then we give that comfort back to
Right.
others. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's amazing. So what would you say, the most important lesson the Lord has taught you on your walk with him?
I really trust in him.
Yeah. Goes back to trust, full circle. Yes.
This goes back to trust, really.
Yeah.
Everything is just, it really is, I love you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take
Yes.
care of you. I know what's
Yes.
going on. I
Yeah.
know you can't see it. Just, you know,
Yeah. Trusting that again and again, even when we don't see it or understand, trusting that he does see it all, first of all, but trusting him with it, whatever that might look like. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like a simple word.
Yeah. Right. I know. It's like just trust. I mean, but that's what it is. It's like we throw out that word, you just got to trust God. And it's like, okay, but how when you're going through these storms of life, right? And that's why it's like,
But you know what? When you look in the Old Testament and all of these times, they're traveling across the wilderness and
yeah.
whatever, and they set up an altar so they can remember. And
Yes.
then something
Yeah.
happens. We set up an altar so we can remember. And it's like
Yes.
we need to go back and
Yeah.
write down those things and
Yes.
say, this is where God was in my life. This is where God was in my life.
Yes.
And this
Yes.
is where he came through in my life. This is where he
Yes.
hasn't come through yet. yet.
Yet. But he will.
But
Yes.
he will, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the gist of my Bible study too, is when you
Yeah.
really go back and examine
Yes.
where he was, where was he? I didn't think he
Yeah.
was there. Oh, actually he was, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and this is what he did. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's such a good point. Remember how quick we are, I think, to forget. First of all, and there is it's like over and over is in the old time. Remember what I've done. Remember, and so I mean, and that in itself
yeah,
is a practical thing that we can do, and to write down. Okay, and I love that. Go through your life and write down where was God going through those trials, and to continually feed yourself that as you're going through another trial. Remember, okay, I've been through he was faithful,
yeah.
Yeah.
Or even in, in other people's lives that I think this is a beauty of conversation though.
Yes.
I love that there's so many podcasts now where you're really talking
Yes.
about God,
Right. I know. Yes,
talking
right?
about Jesus because
Yes.
you don't in your everyday life all the time. Even at church,
Yeah.
you don't always talk about,
Yeah, right.
you know?
Right. That's so true.
You
That's
know,
so true.
I mean, it's not you kind of how's things going and whatever like that, but
Yeah.
you don't always get deeper into it, not like in a Bible study or something else, but
Yes.
all these great podcasts like yours.
Yes, and yours. I know actually, so tell us, because I don't so tell us a little bit about your podcast. Just talking about Jesus, right? Is the name of
Yeah.
it. Tell us a little bit about that. How long have you been podcasting?
I just did episode 52, so 1 year.
Oh, amazing. Oh, congratulations. That's so exciting.
Yeah,
That's
it is. Well, I started with I don't know, God just kind of drops things on, I
yeah.
want you to do,
Yeah, I know.
about starting a podcast. Okay, I don't really know anything about that, but
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you're going to show me what to do if you
Right.
so
Right.
so this was the first podcast, which is called Women of the Northwest,
Okay.
Ordinary Women Leading Extraordinary Lives.
Oh,
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
Because I kind of see myself as that person.
Yes.
A lot of things
Yeah.
I've done, but and it turned out pretty neat. But I think God had that one for a practice for me to figure
Mhm.
it all out,
Sure.
how to do that. And so I just finished 110 episodes on that one. And I'm going to put that one aside because I'm too busy now. But,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
but at any rate, so
Yeah.
about, I don't know, year and a half or so, whatever, God just started saying, I want you to start a new one. I want you to do a faith-based. And I'm going, oh, come on, really? God, I'm doing this and I'm writing all these books and I'm doing all these other
Right. Right.
Bible study, I'm doing, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking to at least 5 of my kids every day,
Yeah. Right.
but
Right.
I don't know, all
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah.
And then as I'm going, because I know how much work it is,
Yeah. Yes.
so
Thank you.
I want to
Yeah.
do another one. Really, you really
I
want
know.
to do
Are
another
you
one?
kidding me?
But a lot of the times, because the other one wasn't basically a
Yeah.
faith-based, it was just,
Yeah.
and I might throw a little couple of things in there, but it wasn't, I
Yeah.
had a mixed audience and everything.
Yeah.
And so I'd interview somebody and think, man, like the gal that I interviewed, this Amy Miles, who I based my um, abortion survivor story on.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
interviewed her and I'm thinking, ah, no, we got to get into
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
got to like, where's God in this? We just not, it's
Right.
not just the
Right.
story of this, what happened. This is like,
Yes. Yes.
and people need to know that kind of, so anyway, it was just kind of like, okay, all right.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Oh, good.
Fine.
And now I absolutely love it.
Yes.
I
So
love,
fun.
love it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And to your point though, it is such a beautiful thing, all of these podcasts, but to be talking about God and reminding each other to through our stories, through our testimonies of his faithfulness and goodness. I mean, and that's part of my podcast is, hey, these men and women who have walked with the Lord for so long and have literally been through so much, but to still to see God's faithfulness and his hand leading you through that. And it is powerful. So it's back to those stones of remembrance, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you get started on yours.
Yeah, well, I
What was
mean,
that God prompt?
well, yes, right. Well, you said it's like, God put that on your heart. I mean, it was very similar. It's like he kind of was just dropped it like, hey, this is what I want you to do. And I wrestled with it. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And I don't feel that's way outside my comfort zone. No, thank you. But he kept knocking. And I was like, okay, finally. I was like, okay, I'll do this. Yes, fine. So yeah, I just launched in October, so I think I just released my 25th episode, so
Yeah.
still a newbie and figuring things out, but it has been a blessing to hear from people like yourself and to learn from them and to just hear the stories of God's goodness, you know?
I just love your stories too. I mean,
Yes.
they're just
Yeah.
great. And yeah.
Yeah. Very powerful. So a couple final questions and then we'll wrap up, but one is, what is your favorite passage of scripture or your life Bible verse, if you have one, and its significance to you?
I have a couple. One is Isaiah 58:11.
Mm,
The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen
mm,
your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail.
that's good. That's so good.
And Jeremiah 6:16. Stand at the crossroads
Yes. Woo. Yes.
and ask for the ancient paths where the good way lies.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I know that you've asked us before, but about things you tell your younger self.
Yes. Yes, please.
I would tell my younger self to dig into the word. I think I said
Yes.
that before.
Yeah.
But really to get to know who God is, you know, what his character is, what he's
Mhm.
done. Surround yourself with others who
Yeah.
are passionate about God,
Yeah.
you know. Um, how about trusting him when things
Common
don't go
theme.
as planned? Or there's a divine detour that you can't see the end of the road, that that the God who created you is really, he does see the beginning from the end. That's what he
Yeah.
says he is, and he does. He knows his big picture,
Yeah.
and that without one of the things, we say we want to be like Jesus, but do we want to go through trials and tribulations?
Great question. Yeah. Right.
You
Right.
know, but we go through the trials and tribulations because that's where we come closest to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's what he says too, right? I mean, in this world there will be trials and tribulations, but take heart, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even with that, just to go deeper, like we should thank him for that because that's really, oh, you're giving me an opportunity to get closer to you,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and you're building my testimony to share with somebody else
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
might be going
Yeah.
through it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Because he
that's
is
such
the
a
comforter.
yeah, and I think that's such a good way actually of looking at it as, oh, okay, you're I'm going through this and it's a opportunity to draw close to you
Yeah.
and to rely and depend on you. I think that kind of keeping that in mind, that's a good perspective shift, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
That's with all the it's always easier said than done.
Oh, great. That's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
Look what
Yes.
God's going to do with you.
Yes.
But
Right.
it's true,
Right.
he does.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he
Yeah.
is our comforter, provider, caretaker, healer.
Yeah.
He's
Yes.
got so much for us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Well, Jan, thank you so much. This has been just such a pleasure talking to you and hearing a little bit, just a little snippet of your story. And I appreciate you sharing and being with us. I'm so grateful.
Well, I am so grateful to be here too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Eternal Echoes podcast. If your soul was nourished in any way by today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you share it with others, share it on social media, or take a quick moment to leave a rating or review. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Eternal Echoes Ministry. Thank you for joining me, and may God bless you today and always.